Welcome to the What's Working Gender Equity Data Insights for advancing gender equity in your company. First of all, thank you so much for taking a look at this video and for taking an interest in this report. My name is Michael Fury. I'm one of the co-founders of We Aspire. We specialize in working with first-time leaders and helping them get promoted and be great when they get there. The key part of this report was all about helping give business leaders pragmatic and easy to access information around how can you actually make tangible progress around gender equity. We know it's a sensitive topic, we know it's a tricky topic, and we also know lots have been tried and often it hasn't necessarily moved the dial. So it can be a very frustrating topic to talk about and one which is often kind of tricky to talk about because of the nature of it. So this report, let's dive straight in, is all about just helping you navigate that a little bit better. So in the comments below, there is a link which you can check out and you can download your copy of this full report for free. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with this area, you may have heard last week about the WGEA, Australian Gender Pay Gap. Now, it's not necessarily what this report is about. It's really, actually, we go into a lot more detail well beyond just the pay gap, because that's a component. But the pay gap does demonstrate something quite interesting. It talks about and brings to the fore the difference, arguably, in how men and women are viewed in the workplace and how they're necessarily paid. It's a tricky topic because there's so much complexity and there's lots of people actually talking about how this is completely nonsense data. But what it does do, it just highlights the issue more than anything. We've put a few stats in here to show there's some sort of imbalance which the data suggests. However, this report's not necessarily about addressing just that. In fact, our goal here was to look at the research data, look at what's actually working, speak to people about specific case studies they may have built or implemented and tried in their companies, and then brought it to you so you can evaluate what might work in your company and what you could adopt and what might be a more effective strategy in this area, or maybe some of the things, the silly mistakes you might be making, which you won't when you know the data. So that's what we looked at. And this next bit is really about what's the goal. Okay, we hope that with this data, you're going to be better equipped to really help in terms of attracting talent, retaining talent, and ultimately being a champion for diversity. Because as we'll go into in the later sections, gender diversity is actually really good for business. It helps you boost revenues, it helps boost profitability, it can mean that you can solve problems and boost productivity. There's some amazing traits around it, well beyond just whether it's the right thing or something like that. Let's not get dragged into that debate on this conversation, but it's really about how can we bolster and boost your company and gender diversity. To steal a quote from the Boston Consulting Group, there's very few slam dunks in business, but this being gender equity is one of them. I love that quote, and I think it typifies exactly what we're trying to make more widely known in this context. So what are the myths we busted? Well, you can see there's lots, and many of them include, I'm not going to go through all of them, but the biggest ones often is around this kind of bias training. We even still get approached by customers or clients and asking, okay, can you run a gender bias training in our company? And we're like, oh, it's just tricky thing is the data shows it doesn't actually work. And that is a tricky thing to communicate to a customer because they want to make a difference, and that may well be the boat that you find yourself in. Often people think it's expensive. The reality is, and we're going to show you, there's some really simple tweaks which can remove the bias issues. And there's really only certain kind of inflection points or maybe processes that you have in your company where bias is probably the biggest or could be a real significant issue. There are quite simple strategies. I say that in inverted brackets because I know how complex corporates can be, but there are relatively simple solutions to helping you sidestep bias so you can just avoid it altogether and build a better process effectively. So let's dive into, so there's a whole bunch of myths there. Just to touch on We Aspire. So we've worked with thousands of people now at this point. We specialize in first-time leaders, and our goal and our mission is to really build the most effective training tool for first-time leaders. That's what we're trying to achieve, and that's why, of course, we're looking at the research. This research links directly to the work we do because often the people we're working with are going through childbirthing, they're either pregnant, they're returning to work, they're maybe at that inflection point, or maybe they're not at all interested about going down that route. Maybe they're actually trying to accelerate their career internally and stay within the workforce. It's a whole mix, and we work with men and women. It doesn't really matter. And the point here is that we're just trying to work out what's the most effective strategy to empower us. So it's ultimately for us, but we thought we could also share it with you so you could benefit and learn from the research that we've spent. So the question is, how do we best move forward in this area? And ultimately, the way we've navigated this report is we've got 6 key sections. The first thing, we've got a too long, don't read section for those who are in a rush and just need to get to the bottom of it really, really quickly. We've got 2 pages of that. I'll go into that in just a sec. Then we've got the other sections: hiring, promotion, navigating bias, performance, and financial outcomes. So depending on what you're trying to find out, you can navigate to one of these. We've got a video on each one of these, and feel free to just flick through to that and you'll see some of the key takeaways in those different areas. So for those who want a kind of a sneak peek, here's the too long, don't read summary. You can see some of the key takeaways that we've got on screen. It's been a really fascinating project doing this. We've had to come in it with a very kind of curious mindset, and that would be my one encouragement to you. Try and stay curious. Try and suspend disbelief. Try and go engage with the results of the research, often which might be a bit kind of confronting, some of them. But what is the message behind that? What could you do with that information if you're now empowered with the data? Here's a second slide of the too long, don't read summary. Again, feel free to flick through that. It's in, I think, page something like 9 or 10 of the report, and means that you can kind of cut to the chase if that's all you've got time for when it comes to this. But without further ado, this is what the actual kind of takeaways in the report will look like. This one is taken from the hiring section, and is one of the, has to be one of the standouts and some of the low-hanging fruit, which we think people can implement in their organizations. So mums who show kiddie career breaks receive 13% less callbacks for jobs. Well, how do you get round to that? Well, the really easy thing to do is stop asking for timeline CVs and ask for years of experience. So many application processes ask you to pen in the date from this date to that date, this date to that date. You don't really need that information necessarily. And it was found in the study, this is a UK study, they sent 9,000 CVs out to different jobs. And they found that the female ones which showed that kiddie career break, 13% less callbacks or emails in terms of the application. So some really fascinating insights, a lot of details gone into. There's some other really super simple things like showing applicant numbers on your job ad. That can make a massive difference for the people you can attract. In fact, 11.7% increase in job applications from women was achieved by just having the number of applicants who are applying for the role. Super simple, right? We think there's a lot like that, which allow you to sidestep bias rather than trying to overcome, navigate it, retrain your team. That can be laborious, and as the data shows, most of the time ineffective. So thank you so much for engaging with this. Please jump into the other chapters, and it is our pleasure to share this work with you, and we would love to hear your feedback, your ideas, questions, challenge. What should we have covered? Please comment below to this video, or reach out directly through the direct channels through our website. We thank you so much for taking the time to investigate and learn about this topic.